Good evening. Welcome to Equity News on Equity Access. My name is Sandra Chororo, and here with me is Iben Mabunda. Iben, how are you doing tonight?
Can't want to complain. You don't get better, Sandra, yourself.
I'm all right, thank you. Please take us through today's news.
Well, interesting development. Well, we've just had a quarter that's just concluded, and the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange has lost 17% in the first quarter. Now, this, of course, would be follow up to three successive gains in as far as quarters are concerned from March of 2018 right up until the end of that particular year. Well, let's just get into the stats so that you get an appreciation of how it is that we've actually gotten to this point. Well, we opened the year at 487.1 points. Then as we moved right up to the 24th, reaching a high of 537.21 points. Also to complement that was volumes of 15.7 million. As we progressed in the first quarter, we then got to a point where we recorded a significant volumes. This, of course, would be Econet transactions there, up to 219.7 million in terms of volumes. Well, then this, of course, was 2 days just before the monetary policy pronouncement. So there was actually an increase from 507 points to 510 points.21 at that point. Then on this particular date, this would be the in February, which is actually the 22nd, where we have the monetary policy statement being issued, and from that point there has been a downward trajectory, and it's been that trend. And for the last day of trading in the first quarter, we recorded volumes of 6.6 million in that regard, as well as points of 405.57 points in that regard. Then moving on to our next story, Stanchart, which is one of Zimbabwe's oldest banks, has issued a statement that indicates possible increase in terms of the bank charges in that particular sector. Well, this of course is subject to regulatory approval by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, but this is an attempt to factor in changes that have taken place in the macroeconomic setup, introduction of 2% tax by Finance Minister Professor Mthuli Ncube, as well as monetary policy pronouncements that have also brought with them seismic shifts in the economy. Well, you can expect this to actually be the trend across the sectors. Other banks are also looking or are also fighting to have an increase in terms of their bank charges in that particular sector. And moving on to our next story, the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority has issued a statement which indicates an increase in the prices of fuel. Well, according to the statements there, diesel has been pegged at $3.20, as well as fuel at $3.40, $3.41. Now, just to have an appreciation of the price of petrol in that regard, April of 2018 we were selling at about $1.36, which was of course a subdued figure. As we move on to October of 2018, $1.43. At this point here, these are government subsidies which are actually playing a hand in the market, and so what we're seeing here is very much artificial and beyond the confines of regional prices. In fact, this has actually been the cheapest in the region. Then moving right up to January, His Excellency President Edi Mnangagwa hikes the fuel by more than 150% to $3.31 for petrol. Now, what government gazetted price is $3.31. Out on the pump, you have figures of about $3.39 being actually the average figures that you have out on the ground. Well, so at this point, Zera is coming in to say we're increasing the price to $3.40, which is pretty much a reflection of the price that you already have on the ground. Well, our business correspondent, Zera, gives us the story in detail. Let's have a listen.
As Zimbabwe's economic crisis persists, fuel shortages continue to cloud Zimbabweans. Fuel queues continue to elongate, with citizens spending days on the line hunting for the liquid. In the recent developments, the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority, Zera, has announced fuel price increases, which would be the second time that the government has increased the fuel pump price in 3 months. In an issued statement by Zera, fuel pump price will now increase to $3.41 and $3.20 for petrol and diesel respectively. This would be a 3% increase from the government set price. However, while government is moving in to increase the price at this point, on the ground the petrol pump price is reported to be between $3.37 and $3.39 already, as retailers play on increased demand due to limited supplies of the liquid. On the parallel market, petrol is trading between $4.20 and $5 RTGS. Increased government price could help address the supply issues in battling the fuel sector on one hand. On the other hand, this could push fuel prices further than the government set price if the national demand is not met, notwithstanding the inflationary pressure that this will have on the economy in its entirety. In January, President Edi Mnangagwa hiked the fuel pump price to $3.11 per litre for diesel and $3.31 per litre for petrol from the once government subdued $1.24 per litre for diesel and $1.32 per litre for petrol.
I'm here with the motorist. Hi, say how are you? How long have you been standing in the queue?
2 days.
So are you saying yesterday you didn't have any business?
Yes.
Ah, that's sad. Okay, how much are you guys paying for the fuel?
$3.38.
$3.38 per litre. Oh, it's not $3.40. $3.40. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Oh, so the prices have gone up today. Oh, that's it. Oh, I see. And do you guys consume diesel, petrol? What do you guys use for your car? Petrol. And how many liters you need to fill in your whole tank?
60 liters.
60 liters. So, but then is this the only station with the fuel?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the only one?
Yeah.
And are you sure that there's fuel at the station, or you're just standing in without knowing like if you're going to get the fuel?
We are just
You're just standing?
Yes.
But you don't know if the fuel is there. But then at other stations you couldn't find any fuel. Oh, I see. So there is no fuel here, but you're still standing in the queue because you hope there will be fuel. Okay, I see. All right. Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen.
In neighboring South Africa, fuel prices are set to increase by 9% from the 3rd of April 2019 due to the weakening rand and increased international oil prices. This in addition to the increase in road and fuel taxes. Equity Axis News, Sandra Chororo.
In other news, the central bank has issued a statement, well, that of course with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, a circular, which among other issues discusses certain frameworks or guidelines with regards to the selling of tobacco in that particular sector. Now, key to the circular that has been issued, which is actually circular number 6 of 2019, it stipulates that if you are a tobacco farmer and you've been taking your tobacco to the auction floors, story is you get your payment in RTGS dollars. But if you want to have partial payment in US dollars, you'd have to make an application, and that application would allow you to get up to 50% of your produce in foreign currency, without which that actually is payment in RTGS. Same applies for the merchants or the buyers in the auction floors. When you actually take your produce outside Zimbabwe and you get paid by your foreign buyers, payment comes again in RTGS dollars unless you make an application for payment in US dollars, which would only be up to 50%. Well, that's it from the local space. Please take us through the international space, Sandra.
All right. India, the second largest country in the world, is going through elections starting from the 11th of April to the 19th of May. And Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, has tried by all means to create objectivity and stop the spread of fake news by removing 700 accounts from Facebook. And in other news, Theresa May, the Prime Minister of UK has once again failed to convince the MPs to vote with her on the Brexit issue.
Well, an interesting development there. There is actually an April 12th deadline, which if they are not able to actually come up with some sensible deal, this could spell disaster or a no deal for both the European Union as well as Great Britain. So I do hope that in the days to come, Sandra, they are actually able to come up with resolutions that would actually come up with positive deals for these two territories, as this would actually have positives for both economic territories actually moving forward.
On the other hand, Germany manufacturing suffers a blow due to the Brexit issue, as well as the ongoing war, the trade war between the United States and China. And this war is not only affecting Germany manufacturing companies, but it's also affecting France and Italy in the world. Equity Access News.
Well, it's always beautiful to have you on set, Sandra. Well, that's it from our news bulletin for this for tonight. Up next would be a commentary on the news that we just discussed. Please stay tuned. Equity Access economist Tinashe. Tinashe, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Eben. Good evening, viewers.
Beautiful. Let's cut to the chase. Let's start by talking about the developments with regards to fuel. I mean, it's been a hectic series of weeks. I mean, it's been sleepless nights for several drivers. Some have spent days upon in the fuel queues, only for some of them to actually be turned away. Now, what is the situation there with regards to the increased prices, the increase of prices that have just been mentioned there by Zera? Maybe just to give perspective to our viewers. Oh, oops, it looks like it's a wrong one there. Good. Let's get into Zera there. There is the statement that actually explains to us where it is that the fuel prices are heading, but perhaps you'd want to shed more light with what's actually happening there.
Eben and viewers, fuel prices increase in Zimbabwe, they were actually inevitable. If you look at the global market, fuel prices, especially Brent crude, has been going up, and it's now up 27% year to date. So if you look in the region, and when you compare to other markets as well, our fuel price in terms of US dollars is actually one of the cheapest. At $3.41 per liter, it's equivalent to around $13 per liter if you divide it by an exchange rate of 3%, the interbank rate. So it's actually one of the cheapest in the region. So I actually expect some series of price hikes of fuel. You have seen even in South Africa, they've also been increasing the fuel prices.
Yesterday we reported on how there's actually a 9% increase.
In that. Also, if you look at the domestic economy setup, where we rely much on South Africa in terms of even the fuel for the manufacturing sector. So that increase was actually inevitable.
Oh, I realize. So, what can we expect going forward? You just mentioned that perhaps we could actually see a growing trend in that regard.
I'm enjoying that you have included this graph. If you look at this sharp jump,
Yeah.
it was a result of that rise in the parallel market rate, which led to that adjustment in fuel price by His Excellency. But if you factor in the exchange rate, you will find that our fuel price has been in the region below $13 or around $15 per liter. So it's not something that I say we have to panic a lot, but I'm thinking that is something that we were actually expecting as businesses and even as citizens.
Okay, now let's talk about the significance of the tobacco, the government coming in to say, look, if you are a farmer, if you don't make an application to receive part of your payment in US dollars, all of your payment will be in RTGS dollars. How fair is that in as far as the players in the field are concerned? Is this what they've been expecting? Okay, what happens if the information actually skips my attention and I'm not aware that I'm supposed to make this kind of application? What happens to me?
Even there are so many things that are of sticking issues in the tobacco industry, which the government should actually take heed of. My fear is, there are so many factors that are demotivating, especially the farmers who will be on the ground, producing that tobacco. We are coming on a background where farmers were enjoying, 100% in RTGS last year, then another 10% as bond notes as an export incentive. So that incentive right now, it has been, drained away, and farmers are not being able to access their US dollars. So it's actually a matter of concern in the sector. You find that even in terms of that 50%, which is their statutory or what was required by the RBZ that will be allocated to tobacco farmers, it has not been being processed in time. So it's actually a sticking issue in the sector. You'll find also that even the merchants themselves, they are being given their drawdowns 100% RTGS, implying that whoever is selling his tobacco at the floors is being given 100% RTGS. So the government has to be proactive such that it won't demotivate the farmers from coming back to the field next farming season.
Right. I'm a bit concerned with that. I'm a bit concerned where that actually is concerned, for the reasons that, look, tobacco raked us just below $1 billion, which is actually our second largest forex earner for the year 2018. So would this not actually disincentivize farmers from
that's my point.
Engaging in the farming practice of the particular crop as we get into the next season?
That's my point, Eben. That's why I'm coming in here, that saying, okay, government should be proactive and implement certain policies that will motivate farmers to go back in the field, or maybe have a broader policy, include that broaden that command agriculture scope to cover, the tobacco as well. We have got a situation where, 80% of our production of tobacco is being done through merchant system. What the government has to do is to, develop and entrench, the auction system, such that we have, wider benefits to the economy. Otherwise, from those loans, much of our tobacco that we are exporting is being done just to repay those loans.
I realize. Let's talk about something else key that is actually taking place. Stanchart has made a move perhaps toward increasing the charges for in as far as bank charges are concerned. What is the relevance of that?
Even we are actually in a very worrying environment where there is carnage in all markets. So we're actually expecting the financial service sector even to follow suit. The charges in the financial service sector, they were actually fixed or pegged by the RBZ. So you find all these banks now, they are just responding, to this macroeconomic environment which we are operating in. So these charges is just a response to the prevailing macroeconomic environment.
So you have 2% tax on the one hand, and then now you have banks increasing their bank charges. Is that not inflationary at the end of the day? Not to talk about the effect of the fuel. Where are we headed? I mean, that's another subject. But perhaps
the 2%, I take it more as an austerity measure, which is meant to, wipe out the excess liquidity in the economy. So this is what austerity happens. It's pain, and there is pain with austerity. That's why most economies don't want to implement such measures. That's the effects of austerity, which I attend.
Okay, that's on the one hand, but I'm talking about the effect of inflation. Look, when austerity comes in on the 1st of October, what happens? We see inflation 5% October, 25% November, 31% December. Now we're grappling with an inflation rate of 59%. So now I'm saying in the name of austerity, now we've got bank charges coming in. This being, of course, a reflection or a knock-on effect of the so-called austerity.
Yeah, they might have a contributory factor to inflation, but I'm confident that the authorities might be able to curtail that rise in inflation. My worry is when maybe they fail to contain money supply, but when they stick to the current status quo, I foresee inflation even.
You sound very optimistic right there, Tinashe. I beg to differ. Let's get into the performance of the stock market in the first quarter, where we have a decline. I mean, we're coming from a background where there has been 3 consecutive quarters that have actually been on an upward trajectory. Now we've got a decline of 17% within the first quarter. What is your assessment of that?
The stock market performance, to me, highlights, the speculative behavior that was in the economy before, these monetary issues that were resolved. The currency crisis actually rose to, most of the investors, they were hedging, or they were going to the stock market to hedge against, carnage in the fixed deposits or in the fixed market sector. So now with the coming in of the RTGS dollar as a currency, the central bank actually has cleared that space, and we are now certain that we now have a single currency in the form of the RTGS dollar. So we are now seeing, with the advent or of the coming in of the interbank market, investors now are selling off from the stock market, going back to the money market, or they are disinvesting from the stock market.
Perhaps other forms of
investment.
Okay.
So this is more of a correction of the stock market, which was actually overvalued.
Well, thank you for the insights. Well, up next is a perspective on the stock markets. Please stay tuned. Investment analyst here at Equity Access to take us through the performance of the stock market. Anesu, please take it home.
All right, it was a very green day again today. We have about 5 counters on the top 10 index coming up, from some coming from prior session losses, and some actually extending on some of their gains from the prior session. Now, why I've zoomed in on the top 10 index is pretty much because of how that effect has had on the stock exchange lately. I think it's about 3 sessions, if I'm not mistaken, now running where the stock market has been on a positive trajectory, with the all share index extending on its gains by 1.33% today to settle at 124.26 points, while the industrials index settled at 414.37 points, extended by 1.35% from its prior session gains. Now the top 10 index on an average did at about 1.79% for it to settle at 117.99. Now this has pretty much when the year-to-date losses there coming down to about 18.63%, while the all-share index, which is the broader aspect of the stock exchange, coming to about negative 15.01 on a year-to-date basis. Now, the strongest performer among the top 10 index were two counters from the top three counters on the stock exchange, which is your Econet and your Cassava, that added about 4.47% and 3.6% for those two counters in that respective order. Now, like I did mention, we have been coming up for about 3 sessions now running. I would say this would be for us to land from on 124.26 today. We had started on a trend which had come up from a Thursday into a Friday from 120.63, actually from Thursday, which had come up from 120.55 to 120.63 and so on, with a slight decline actually yesterday, which actually did snap that. That's again my bad. There about a lot of numbers can confuse me a little bit, but we have landed about 3.08% ahead of a 5-day trend, with the top 10 index still showing its strength in that regard, coming up 4%.
Well, that's about it for tonight. Thank you, Anesu, for giving us the perspective. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and to visit our website, www.equityaccess.net. Danke and adieu.